The obvious beneficiary of pet insurance is obviously the pets, but there are significant wins for pet owners as well as veterinary practices. So let's talk a little bit about that. So Danielle, how are diagnostic and treatment conversations with clients different when the pet is insured?
We're going to lead into those conversations the same way we do whether the pet is insured or not, which is we're going to lead with what is best care for their pet and the best option. Ultimately, though, it is going to come around to having a financial discussion and how that's going to look for them for their financial responsibility for that care. So ultimately, we find in practice that those pets that do have pet insurance, those clients are ready to go ahead and sign on the bottom line and move forward with care. And those conversations are shorter. Certainly, when they're not, those often can lead to more in-depth discussions or often coming back to plans B, C, and D that Bash referenced earlier.
So can I just add something to that? You know, even though it's not my question, I wanted to add to it. We did this thing at this practice where it was during dental month, and we offered payment plans. It wasn't pet insurance, obviously, but it was payment plans, so that people, we told the technicians that if clients looked like they were going to balk at getting the dentistry for their pet, we could offer them a payment plan. So when we checked our numbers at the end of dental month, we had tripled our dental compliance. So I was like, that's amazing. Like, what happened? And all the technicians were like, it was those payment plans, man. That's what really sealed the deal. So I turned to the client care representatives and I said, how many payment plans had we written? We had written 0 payment plans. And it was just it was just the freedom. Technicians and doctors knew that they could talk about those services without worrying about money, and they were much more successful at those conversations. So I wanted to add that when you said, like, we start those conversations the same way, with or without pet insurance, I don't know if we do. You know, I think that I go back to money colors the way that we talk about what it is we do. And when you're free of that, I don't know, you're much more willing to tell them what you really think that they should do.
Well, I do think it comes ultimately to empowering your team to feel confident in what they are recommending. And so definitely in our hospital, we do have that culture of where they do really believe in the value to what we're recommending. And so I do think that's how then you're going to approach it.
Yeah.
Ultimately as well, I'm lucky that about 5 years ago, I definitely got really heavy into the pet insurance bandwagon and started going out to our referring hospitals and just asking them, how are you talking about pet insurance? And so found many of them were not talking about it, or they were just throwing brochures at clients. And so we just kind of started talking about, let's have this dialogue. And we have found that while nationally, still only about 2 to 3% of pets are insured, we are continuing to see an uptick over the last 5 years of pets that are insured that hit our referral and emergency hospital, which has just been really good for not only, of course, the pets and the clients, but ultimately for my team as a whole. They really see the benefit of that, and that makes their job, much more satisfying to them every day.
So you're going on and training the practices that refer to you. You're training their team members how to talk about it.
Well, I go out and just wanted to start a dialogue with them and find out what they were doing, and kind of broaching the idea that I do think this is a long-term solution that's going to benefit the entire veterinary patient-client relationship, as well as the industry as a whole and the profession, really looking at what happens to veterinary professionals over their years and some of the turmoil and the emotional parts of that really weigh on them over time. And I really saw this then as this is a solution. And if we can go ahead and put this into place sooner rather than later, it's going to be slow, but it's going to pay off. And we're certainly seeing the payoff.
That's great.
I definitely can second everything you have been saying. As a practicing veterinarian, when I know that I'm about to see a client that has pet insurance, I go, oh, thank God.
Yeah, right.
Okay, now I can actually do my job, and I don't have to worry, and the client doesn't have to worry, and we don't even have to think about that. And it is a huge weight off my mind. So along the same vein, how do you see compliance in these clients being different than clients that have pets that are uninsured?
Yeah, so I think through some literature and research that have come out of the pet insurance companies, you definitely see the compliance rate much higher with clients that have pet insurance. They, in general, also just come to the veterinary hospital more consistently and frequently, which is just leading to getting those pets seen sooner, which ultimately improves their prognosis as well. So, there's definitely an increase there. And, because pet owners coming in, they really do want to do what's best for their pet. They are parts of their family. And, but ultimately, when it does sometimes come down to what they can financially afford.
I mean, you eliminate that, well, let's just wait and see,
Exactly, absolutely. And then potentially, I do think, and sometimes I think veterinarians do get in a way that they bring that up because they are concerned that the client can't afford it. So I will just, a little caveat, again, worked for years that we don't make those assumptions. I don't want that assumption going into the room because we don't know potentially what somebody can or cannot afford, and we don't want to be the ones making that decision for them ahead of time. But I can see in working with veterinarians that can happen over time. So it's a conversation as a team that we have to have very consistently. But again, that's why I wanted to put something in place, and particularly in our community, but, speaking nationally, bringing it out to the entire profession to say, this is a way for us, that slow trickle you were talking about earlier, that we can stop having this conversation and the ethical exhaustion that occurs in our profession over it.
Yeah.